Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner, executive producer and host of the Break It Down Show. I'm Chris is working on trying to come in, and I thought I would just get us started. We can start chatting now with what's going on here at the show, and just do a little bit of updating as he tries to get his mic and camera set up all going and everything. Chris has been on the show a number of times. He runs a company called Tactical 16. They are a publishing company. We've had a bunch of their authors on the show over the years. um the first ladies man, he writes about the first ladies. He's been on the show before. We've had gosh, just any number of people that have written books, really powerful stories of either heroism or struggle and strife, life stories, those kind of things. And so we just we always enjoy having Chris on the show. And I can see him, but his camera and audio is not turned on yet, so we're working on that. In the meantime, a couple things with the show. One, heck, let me just start by saying this. Here's a great way to support the show. That link right there going across the bottom of the page, that link takes you to my PayPal page where I am building up subscriptions. And look, this is what this is. When folks often say, hey, why don't you do Patreon? Well, I don't need Patreon. I just need you and me together trying to figure out how to make things happen. And Patreon just gets in the way in between what we try to do. I got Chris right there. And so here's what I want you to do is go to that link, or just go to breakitdownshow.com and go to the PayPal link. And right there, you can build your own subscription. If there's something you'd like me to do for you personally, tell me, hey, Pete, come out and see me in fill in the blank country, fill in the blank state. And I'll work on doing those things. But a small amount of money. Look, we have a lot of people that follow the show. If they each gave $5, I wouldn't have to ever ask you money ever again. Right. So just if you want to support, that's the best way to do it. That gets me on the road. If you want to buy me a tank of gas, be surprised how far I can go on a tank of gas. I will sleep in my truck. If you just send me to fill in the blank state, I'll come crash on your couch, whatever it is, man. I keep it lean because look, I'm a combat guy, and Chris and I can talk about this. I have slept, let's see, on a windowsill, on a pile of rocks, and thought it was the most comfortable pile of rocks ever of all time. I mean, yeah. And so it doesn't take much for me to get on the road and go out and find some incredible people. You guys know I find incredible people. Here's what I need help with: a little bit of cash, 5, 10, $15. Some people give $50. One dude gives $100 a month. I love that. All that stuff goes right back into the show and allows me to get on the road. All right, I've been talking about my stuff a lot. Now let's talk about Chris Schafer and Tactical 16. Hey, Chris, what's up, man? How are you?
Brother, I'm busy, man. I'm real busy, and that's good. That's good. So, um, Pete, the publishing world is it's just a crazy thing. In fact, I just talked to an author that knows Scott Husing.
Uh,
So, yeah, it just everybody just it's a small world, and that's just kind of how it is, man. So,
it is.
doing great. I mean, we got 14 authors down the pipe. I got 3 that are reviewing right now to see if we can't go to contract for books. Um, we just released that poem book from the World War II
Right.
vet. Yeah.
Which you've been working on forever.
Yeah, like 2 years, man.
He was alive when you started working on this.
Yeah, his hospice nurse actually contacted us. And
Wow.
we knew we were short on time. And he had wrote these 70 poems throughout his life. I mean, he's just one of the greatest generations, right? He ran away from home, tried to join the Navy. They said, kid, you're too young. Pearl Harbor happens. They're like, hey, kid, you want to sign up? You know, so he goes right to combat on a Navy ship. He was at Iwo Jima. He was at the signing of the armistice from the Japanese surrender, rather. And then he became a sheriff actually in Maricopa County, Arizona. And so he dealt with his post-traumatic stress by writing these poems. And incredible book. I was talking with some of my editors, and we were discussing how meticulous he was about writing these poems. Like none of that book is justified. We even got that in the front of the book. That our formatters didn't make it look straight. He actually counted each letter and each space, so the words would line up perfectly, like they were like perfect. And then he did other poems where there'd be like one letter additional, one space additional. So it'd go like this. And I mean, it's just, it's the all-American guy, right? And so when we did the contract, I asked him, I said, "Hey, where do you want the royalties to go?" And he said, "Send him to Wounded Warrior." You can't make it up, man. You just can't make it up. That's the greatest generation right there. Always served his country all his life. And even in his death, he's given back to Wounded Warriors, so.
In the past couple of months, I found a whole new branch of my family. My birth father and I connected, and that meant two new brothers and a sister and a grandpa and his brothers that all fought in World War II. And my grandpa
Wow.
flew Hellcats in the Pacific.
Very cool.
And one of the tales, and I think it's still possible to confirm this as being true, but when they were coming home and they were going into San Francisco because they came back to the Bay, he was in his airplane and was like, you know what? Under the Golden Gate Bridge, upside.
Very cool. Yeah.
And if you knew it was going to happen, someone took a picture of that.
Somewhere, dude.
And there's a flight log that says,
Yeah.
John Norton was in an airplane, and there's probably, like, I mean, look, you know how these things go. Maybe there's a letter of reprimand somewhere, but maybe there's not. But there's
Those guys, I mean, it's so, and it's more than likely true. I mean, what were they going to do to those guys? What
send
were
them
they
to
going to
war.
do? Yeah. Exactly. Bend their dog tag, stamp no,
Yeah,
like we always say, stamp no dessert on your dog tag or your ID
right.
card or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who cares?
Stop knowing how to fly that plane.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, especially with those guys, right? Like those Hellcats, whatever the bombers, whoever it is that you're talking about. These guys have pushed a machine to its absolute limit and beyond.
Yeah.
And now you're going to tell them that they can't fly under a bridge. Like, okay, sure, that's terrifying for anybody else, not to those guys.
Yeah. That's just, hey, that looks like fun. I'm going to go do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I
I
would,
can't get shot at flying underneath
yeah,
a bridge inverted.
not
Who
even shooting
cares?
at me.
Yeah.
No one, not
Yeah.
100 dudes, not 100 dudes
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
kill me because I'm
Yeah.
in this
Exactly.
airplane. I'm just flying
Yeah. I'm
upside
just
down. Who
having
cares
fun,
about
dude. Who
that?
cares? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the things about that generation is that there was. I don't want to talk bad about anybody. Every generation has its thing, but people can't even eat damn rice these days.
Oh, I know.
And
Yeah.
the challenges of being a depression era kid, where, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna go join the Navy. I don't need to finish high school. Like, what I gotta do is get to work. I
Yeah.
gotta, and even before war or whatever it is. And that dude with the poem, he's not the only guy to do that. There's a
No.
number of guys that,
Right.
you
Yeah. He
know,
was in the same boat. I mean, so he worked at the docks there in California for a while. He even helped start airplanes for the Chinese that were learning how to fly fighter
geez,
aircraft in the United
mhm,
States. And he was the guy that would, twist the prop to get him started out there. And, I mean, this 16-year-old kid, I mean,
yeah,
nowadays it's like, oh my God, you can, you'd get sued 9 ways till Sunday if you had some 16-year-old kid out there trying to spin a prop on an airplane. You'd get
yeah,
killed. I mean, OSHA would just come down on you, so you'd shut your whole operation down. You'd be done.
yeah.
You know,
The
but
other thing is we lose track of the level of poverty and what was available in in our grandfather's lifetimes. And we're 50, let's just say. I'm 52. My birthday was on Monday. So in our grandfather's lifetimes, there wasn't a guarantee that everybody knew even had shoes.
yeah, dude, no.
And that's crazy when you think about that.
Yeah, so think about this. My grandmother, she lived through the Depression. She was born in the early 20s. She lived through the Depression as a kid. And during World War II, she told me the story about, her brothers went off to war. And the oldest brother was, spared that because he was the oldest and he had to help on the farm. So she
Right.
being I think the youngest would help with, all the work that needed to be done on the farm, like plowing and, using the equipment. And she was young. I mean, she was a young girl, but she said even the tractors, because of the, they rationed everything, rubber, gas, coffee,
Right.
Everything was rationed,
Yes.
right? And so they didn't even have rubber for the tires on the tractor. And she has a picture of her on this tractor. It's just got steel wheels on it. We're talking 1944, man. And
Yeah.
she'd be at, they were just at, yeah, there's no rubber. So
There
they
is a
just did what
level
they
of
did.
hardness that you had to
Yeah.
have probably prior to, like, let's say 1955. By the way, a lot of those guys who were on that ship going under the Golden Gate Bridge where my grandpa was flying upside down underneath it, a lot of those guys a few years later were in Korea. And we, in our minds, we kind of forget that there's not a very long gap between World War II and Korea. It's, 5 or so years, and all of a sudden you're back in this thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't, and even if we read books and history and know some of these people and talk to them, there's no way for us to wrap our heads around what was going on at that time. I mean, there's just no way.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun to talk about these things and the perspectives that we get, and because you're a storyteller and I'm a storyteller, we get to hear these different. You realize when Jesse Owens finished being in the Olympics, that wasn't really a job for the fastest man in the world. You know, going in, whoever the fastest man in the world is right now. I mean, and there's a bunch of guys that are hyper fast. They all are millionaires right
Yeah.
now, and it's not even the Olympics. And they can run for as long as they want and everything else. He had to get a job pumping gas, and a race plays into part of that for sure. Let's not say
Sure.
that doesn't happen. But he's not the only Olympian that had to go do things. I mean, baseball players had to go sell milk in their off season up until maybe like the 70s. I don't know who the last baseball player was that had to have a part-time job, but money and things were not as prevalent as they were or as they are now. I mean, it's a totally different thing, and we struggle to understand that.
Yeah. So I was watching 60 Minutes the other day, and they were talking about Anne Frank, and it
Right.
was kind of interesting. I mean, it was a really interesting show. So the one of the lead FBI investigators that had retired from the United States was called up by the Dutch to help kind of try to solve this case because nobody really knew who ratted out the Anne Frank house, right?
Right.
And what's interesting is one of the Jewish council members, because the Germans had set up at the time, or the Nazis, not the German, same thing, but the Nazis, let's just say the Nazis, had set up this Jewish council to kind of control what was going on with the Jews at the time.
Right.
And they disbanded it. And what the investigators had found out is this one of the disbanded members probably had given the Nazis an address or a name or something uh, to Anne Frank and the house and to where the family was hiding. And it was only because of self-preservation in his family.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't get there. I mean, you and I have talked to several contacts that are in a bad situation, might be in that same possible type of situation, like the allocator or whoever it was,
Yeah.
might just have their family, and it's kind of an iffy situation, and so I mean, but what I'm saying is that you can't really wrap our heads around just the intensity of what was going on in that area in Holland,
Yeah.
during World War II. I mean, they sent them off to a camp. That was it. You never seen them again.
Never saw him
And
again. Yeah, there's another 60-minute story on the Ritchie boys, and these were a bunch of different multilingual people, a lot of them Jewish, who were operators. They were collectors. They would go into country. They did a bunch of different things, but they were hyper effective at getting information because they were from the areas that they were sent back to fight. And one of these dudes, he's still alive, and he's Jewish, and he was the one they were able to get out on the boat. They were going to send the rest, and they ran out of time, and everyone else in his family was slaughtered.
yeah,
You know, and he lives with that. And then you go to World War II, not the gentlest environment to be in as a spy. And it's like, this guy's known a lot of pain and death in his life, and that makes me think about, like when folks today talk about a possible civil war in the United States, and if that ever happens, they have no idea. They have no idea. No one should want
yeah.
this. It is. It is so horrible. If you had a table full, we had 16 people at our table for Christmas Eve. You have a civil war, you don't even have a house.
Right.
Those people are dead. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
They don't understand. You can't even walk down the street, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Food? You want to go to your grocery store? Probably
yeah,
not happening, bro.
yeah. If your survival is turning in your best friend so that you can live, good chance. Some people may not, and they'll die, and they'll still go get your best friend. They'll figure it out. But yeah, you'll sell anybody out to survive because it is normalcy is out the window. It's gone.
Yeah, and you're right. Nobody wants, I mean, I don't truly think anybody understands uh just the utter um pain and suffering that is caused from any type of war.
Right.
And
And
they think, oh, they'll solve the problem by killing people. Well, what they don't understand is that that's the game, and you might be killed too, along with your family, and
yeah.
it's just
And there's no guarantee that you ever get back to a normalcy. Like whatever you think you're fighting for will not be there when it's done. And you and I have been to enough hard countries where you look around and it's so cliche, but it's the truth. When we realize how wonderful it is here in the United States, we have our problems, of course, but go to Burma. They can't even decide if Burma's Burma, Myanmar, or something else. Go to one of these countries that China has got their eye on, and they're looking to take over. I mean, a- almost any other place in the world that isn't Western Europe, go there, and you understand like what we have today is very precious, and we should be working like crazy to preserve it, not to tear it down and reconfigure it.
right, because we've got better ways to go about it, man. I mean, this is not the Civil War. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
that we're already established. We got our system, and we just need to work within it. And
yeah,
good debate is what is needed, not this one-sided. I can't listen to you type stuff.
also not right.
The people need to really open up and have good arguments and get away from this craziness that I've got to be this way. And that's what hurts more than anything. People that are so closed, and this is the way it's got to be, and I understand it. Maybe you don't understand it all the way.
You don't.
Maybe you really need to take a step back and listen for a second. Yeah, it might be bullshit, but if it is, you don't have to engage. But if somebody's willing to communicate with you and actually have an honest discussion and maybe a debate, where you might not even find a solution, but that's better than just, well, I hate that guy because he doesn't think like me. I mean, come on,
Right,
man.
right, right. I want to use that as a transition to get into this other conversation. And you and I have talked about this a lot, but it is not the common conversation. And so I think we need to continue to work on it. I've had this question I ask operators, and I know I've asked you, but have you fired more rounds in combat or had more conversations? And we all go, come on, it's absolutely conversations. And I laugh. That was a performance laugh, but it's still hilarious. Like, no, way more conversations. Where did you spend the bulk of your time? Oh, on the rounds downrange. You know, we don't take that part of the job seriously, and yet it is a crucial thing to get right. And I wrote that thing. I don't know. I'll put the link up here. It's on Medium, but it's called bullets. It's called bullets or conversations or rounds or conversations, and it kind of illustrates the point. Like there's this badass SF warrior, and he's talking about which kind of scope you need in your rifle. He's like, you need two, and all these other things. And these are important things. You have to be lethal and all that stuff. However, where's that badass SF warrior? Where's that SEAL saying, here's how you control the conversation. Here's how you work with an interpreter at the elite level. I know you can wear the middle of a target out. Can you do the same thing with a conversation? Absolutely not.
Yeah, the hardest part of that whole thing is that and this, we always trained for the last war. Okay.
Right.
And it never works out well. I mean, even the Civil War, when we went to trench warfare, bled into World War I, and that was horrible. Trench warfare was, just not very effective. It didn't work very well, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I mean, the way we have to fight wars today is nothing like those guys in World War II, like we were talking about. I mean, that just doesn't happen anymore. Can it happen in the future? Maybe, but right now, the wars that we fight are, you know, 10% kinetic, 90% you've got to figure out where bad guys are, who's going to
Right.
play with you, who the snake is, where the clown show is going on, who's trying to deceive you for what. It's a completely different game. It takes a lot of time, effort, and energy. And Pete, I mean, those link diagrams that we put together for, who's related to what and what color car they drive and where they go and all this other stuff. I mean, those things are out of control, and I mean, you couldn't even put them on a plotter, to put it on a printout because it was just so huge. And understanding that human terrain analysis, that whole concept there is just, we got into that so late in the game, downrange, that we should have been doing that from day one, but we just didn't know. It was just, oh, let's punch holes in targets and, whack bad guys, play whack-a-mole for 15 years, which
Right.
doesn't really, I get it. If you're fighting the Nazis, then yeah, I mean, that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But nowadays war's so complicated, man. I
So
mean, the wars we fought, it's just unbelievably complicated. People don't understand, how bad that is.
that whole idea of the human terrain, when you do make that link diagram and the yellow car and then this dude and that dude, it's all threat driven every single time. It's never stability driven. How do we increase stability? This is how complex this modern fight is who are the critical people we need to talk to, lethally, non-lethally. And non-lethal is like you get this bad taste in your mouth. That because it doesn't even describe what the problem is. You have this provincial council, you have this council of elders, you have these people that won't engage with us, you have these big in money people that are in business, and then people that are extra legal, and all these different pods of people. And if you're not hyper focused on figuring out how to work with these people, doesn't matter who you kill. Shit,
Yeah.
you'll kill the wrong people. They'll have you kill people for them like, you're not even playing the game, you're just
Um,
you're so far out of it, and that's the point of that paper and again, the link is right there. Just go on, just medium type PDA Turner, it'll come up. But that's the thing is, like, we spend 0 time on this, and I'm gonna give you a chance to respond to that, but I wanna feather in this part of the conversation too. Doctrinally, and I'm not talking bad about any one element, but Rangers, for the most part, are obsolete in modern combat. I know there's a need for them, but the amount of time that they spend training and deploying and everything else, and the impact that they have on the day-to-day fight, the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's just, and even like, okay, so here's another thing, and I'll bring this in, and you can talk about this or not, but even Ranger School, we get all fired up because ladies are trying to go through Ranger School. If Ranger School is a leadership school, it is a leadership school. It is not a combat school. And so let's put leaders through this challenge. And if it's time to update Ranger School, which Pete would say it certainly is, I don't care. The standards change all the time. We are losing wars. We are getting our ass handed to us. Don't tell me about Ranger School and girls running the same speed as men. That's stupid. We've got to be better than that.
yeah, I agree, man. I mean, look, the Rangers are good. They do one thing well, and that's break shit and kill bad guys.
Right.
Okay, and and I get it. Okay, there is a need for that, but it is in a very very narrow scope, and sometimes that crap goes wrong in a heartbeat. Like you said, if you killed the wrong guy, you killed my uncle Joe,
Mm,
and I was, sincerely trying to help the, whoever, whatever force is there. Now I've got a beef because those guys killed my uncle Joe. He might have been a bad guy, but, you know, you've actually killed a family member of mine. So now we've got issues,
we got
you
it.
know, and, regardless, it's harder to win the hearts and minds than it is just to go whack guys, you know. Um, yeah, if there's, a bomb making facility and you got to send in the Rangers or secure an airfield because there's a military there and they want to keep their flights in, yeah, the Rangers are good for that. But that doesn't happen much anymore.
Right.
Um,
Right.
the harder part is, like you said, is and like that whole thing about the leadership school. I get it, man. I get it. You're right, and a lot of people don't understand that. They just go off on their tangent and they really talk about things which they don't understand. Because
Right.
Ranger School is just a leadership school. You can be in a Ranger battalion without having a Ranger tab. We both know that. Now, will they let you be an NCO before you go? Can you be an NCO in Ranger Battalion before you go to Ranger School? More than likely not. But I'm sure there are a few NCOs that are running around there that don't have a Ranger tab. Um, you know, Neither here nor there. That's really not the subject. I think what we're trying to get to is the fact that, where do we need to focus on to win those new wars? And you and I have seen it from so many different aspects. We've been part of the
Yeah.
kinetic piece, and yeah, that's cool guy stuff, get a blow up stuff. It's scary as shit. It really does affect you mentally for years. And you come out of it, a different person. But when you've actually got to go and try to get the people to help you complete your mission without killing them,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to kill people than it is to actually get them to actually understand what your position is, understand what their position is, but more importantly, for them to know that you understand their position and what they need, not what you think they need or what
Right.
you think will help them, because that has never worked out well. It's like we said, man, it's putting a damn square peg in a round hole. And then we did that for a long time until you really understand what the problem is, the issue is, how they can help themselves, what the resources they have to work with. You don't just fly in brand new, cell phones when they don't even got cell towers.
Yeah.
You know,
What? We did that.
hey, what are you talking about?
And then some
you know,
guy's like, I will build you cell towers. You're like, oh, thank goodness. And that guy's like, ha ha, I am the enemy.
yeah,
Like,
right.
here's millions of dollars to build cell towers. Thanks. And that guy's like, yes. Yeah. I mean, that's how badly we get our ass kicked, right? Like, I've been trying to think of like a good analogy, and this is not good because it gets really messy fast, but it's as if we're like this heavyweight champion. And if we can get a hook on someone, if we can throw that hook, we will absolutely win the fight. While we're in the ring and there's nobody in the ring with us, the enemy is going out and they're just slicing the audience's throats, and just killing everybody. And we're like, what's going on out there? What's going on? How come everybody hates me for putting on these fights? You know, oh, I know what to do. I'm gonna hand people ringside money. Here's some money for you. Here's some money for you. I'm ready to fight. Someone please get in front of my hook. And they don't ever do it because why in the world would you? Like we use force, 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 and we never find any subtlety. We don't understand that like no one else wants to fight us force on force because one, that's not how you win against us, and two, they don't have the resources.
Yeah, and that's jeez. So at I can't remember this trip, but I was back in Oregon, Afghanistan, the second time because out of my 6 trips out there, I was there twice in the same place, which we
Right.
should have done
All the time.
anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We should have done it all the time. Um, and I remember them having all these brand new farmall implementation gear and equipment, tractors,
Right.
plows, rakes, all this
Yes.
stuff. And the regular army unit was so enamored with this stuff, because they thought that at the time we were working with the DEA, we were really trying to eradicate the poppies. We wanted them to grow other crops, yada yada yada. Well, in the end, you and I both know what happened was is we destroyed the economy because there was so much corn that was grown they couldn't get rid of it. So what did the farmers do? They went back to growing poppy. So it was a complete failure. It
Right.
didn't work. It didn't help anybody out. But we could have probably done some analysis and figured that out before.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
we had all these tractors, and we had the big general. I can't even remember his name at the time. Come in, and I was a liaison to the regular army unit there, just making sure we didn't step on each other's toes when we were doing missions. Yada yada yada. And they wanted me there to help them, kind of be a representative as, the SF guy, so the command can say, look at our SF guy, he's cool, and we don't know what he
Yeah.
does, but he's cool, and we're working with SF. Oh, but look at our tractors, sir.
Yeah.
So we did this big thing. He flew in, we looked at all these tractors, and I'm just kind of hanging back because I don't even want to be in part of the show. I'm like, I got it. I'm the gnome on the grounds that, I look, everybody will point and look at that guy.
You were
And
warrant
so
officer,
this
right?
major was talking to me, and I was like, sir, I said, I got a question for you. First of all, who's going to train these Afghans how to use this stuff? Because
Right.
they don't know how to hook it up. They don't know how to use a PTO on a tractor to, run, whatever equipment you got there. They don't know how to do that. I mean, they're used to using their hand to spread seed and a cow or whatever they had to be able to run their plows. And people don't understand this. They literally think that, everybody's got farm equipment. Well, they don't in this country. They just didn't.
Right.
And so he kind of looked at me like, oh shit, we didn't think about that. And I said, more importantly, I said, sir, when this stuff breaks down,
Yeah.
where are you getting the parts, and who's going to fix it? Because once it's broke, it's broke. That's it. It's done. Like,
Yeah.
it's just a useless piece of metal in some dude's field now.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we didn't think of that. I was like, you had to have thought about this.
Yeah. How about the fact that, hey, there goes, Sher Muhammad, and he's like, drive. He's like, I can drive a tractor, and he figures it out because he's a farmer. He can figure shit out. And he's like, and I'll fix this thing over and over again. However, the fact that I have this makes the Taliban show up. It's a Taliban magnet, and it endangers me and my family. So fuck this thing. I'm going to give it to the Taliban. And here's the thing: this is the complicating factor. Is the moment we leave, we all forget that ever happened, and the next guy's like, "I got an idea, tractors."
Yeah, exactly. So the other problem we had, because they were going to really ram this down these Afghans' throat.
That's the best
So
way to do it.
we were like, okay, so we've got, I think we had 14 tractors at the time, 15 tractors. Like, okay, which 15 farmers are getting these tractors?
Oh boy.
We're like, oh, well, whoever produces the most. Well, how are you going to figure out who produces the most?
Yeah.
Who's the best farmer? Are you going to talk to these guys and they're just going to tell you?
Yeah.
They're like, no. So like you said, it was like, oh, the sure leaders, the guy that, was owed something, so we gave out like 3 or 4 tractors, and this one farmer actually got two of these damn things.
Oh my God.
We're like, okay. So, and then we got this report from one of our guys, and they're like, hey, the Taliban came and attacked this guy. Exactly what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
It was a magnet. And so we went out there, and he only had one tractor, and it was burnt to the ground. It was on fire, burnt to the ground. And we're like, hey, so the Taliban came and attacked. They didn't really kill anybody, but they burned your tractor to the ground. We're like, where's the other tractor? And he's like, I think the Taliban stole it. We're like, no, dude, you sold it. We know what you did with that tractor. You sold the damn thing. You wanted to make some money, and it only made sense. I mean, I didn't know. So he just created this story, burnt one tractor up, sold the other one, and said, yeah, the Americans are stupid. They would never know. They'll just give me another tractor anyways. And we were like, nope, you don't get another tractor, dude. But I mean, that is insanity. You cannot operate like that in those countries. I mean, anywhere like that. You and I both know you have to understand where those people are at.
Yeah.
And we have to help them with what, if they're growing poppy, okay. I don't agree with it. I got it.
Starting point. That's where they're at right now. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's, Joe Sodif guy. I got 2 scopes on my rifle.
Yeah.
Like, dude, and God, listen, everybody's got it. This is why we all have to do a better job. I'm going to hit the SEALs right now, and then I'll come back around and get you green-hatted guys. The SEALs have no business doing this stuff, right? But because they're special forces, we think they can do anything. They don't want to do this stuff. They want to knock on doors and kill people, right?
Right.
And so we put them in these delicate roles where force is absolutely the last thing. Ego and force are worthless in these fights. Correct. And that's what, I want my SEALs to be on steroids and tearing people's heads off because they are supposed to be the elite of the elite at what they do. And the Green Berets, as much as you guys train on this shit, you don't train nearly enough on it. Not nearly enough
No.
to go out and do it, you know? And so I don't know how you get more training in, but we're gonna have to sacrifice some lethality training to get better at the influence training because it's just not and you guys are awesome at it. But I would say, and I know a lot of guys who are special forces Green Beret type guys, and you guys are all super smart, all super capable, but I can run circles around them because I have spent the time in the field going, you know what? I'm not even going to worry about lethality. I got a platoon of bad dudes. They can keep us safe. Let me and a couple other dudes just go focus on the stuff I focus on. I'm not even going to think about threat or lethality. I'm just going to focus on the other crap. And I always say this all the time. I don't care. You give me trans people, give me women, you give me gay people, whatever. If they're willing to work and learn, I will kick anybody's ass, any platoon's ass. I need security so that it's permissible for me to move around, but we'll outperform them because I'm not going to focus in any way on lethality, and we'll be able to get jobs done. But that's not the common. We don't have enough of that capacity. And again, we love to focus on how many, what knife do you have on your kit? My knife is a pencil. And that's fun, you know? It's just Chris, it
You,
drives me crazy because we can be so good at this. This is not hard stuff. We can go get
no.
sales training. We can do all kinds of training that is more focused on these things, but we refuse to do it.
Well, and that's, I think that really has to come from the top down. I mean, when your matrix for success is how many missions you ran into country,
Right.
how many bad guys you captured, that is not, and that's not sustainable. You and I both know it. In a protracted war like this, look, the bad guys, all they have to do is wait us out. That's it. I mean, I don't care if we got nuclear weapons and we still couldn't do anything to the Afghans. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we could have dropped bombs all over the place, but what would that do? They would still be there and they would just wait us out until we had to go home. And that is, the unconventional warfare. That's the David and Goliath type thing, you
Mhm.
know, and it never works. So it has to come from
Never.
the top down. It has to be so focused on really what it is that we need to do. Are we nation building? Because the Army never does that well. That
Yeah.
needs to be a completely separate thing. We need to focus really on what it is that we have to do to gain stability in a country. And it has to, as well as I do, that it changed all the time.
Yeah.
What were we going to do? What was the actual mission focus? And I mean, that is so evident just with the constitution of the Afghans that changed over and over and over again. And the more I went back to Afghanistan, the more the constitution looked like the United States Constitution. And I thought to myself, these people will never be able to execute this because they do not, this is not their culture.
Yeah.
We are again forcing this round peg into a square hole, and we have to have measurable, just like in business. If you can't measure it, you got to measure the right things first.
Yeah.
Measuring dead bad guys and captured bad dudes on the ground, that's not a matrix you even need to worry about.
Yeah.
It's more like, had they supported you in these efforts, had there been bad guys in this area, have there been any attacks on Americans in this whole region? Are they
Mhm.
willing to point out when foreigners come in? Because they know when they come in.
Yep.
You know, those are matrix. Those are hard. That's hard to measure. First of all, it's really
Yeah.
hard to measure, and it's so much easier to say, "Well, we did 59 missions and we killed, 100 bad guys and we captured 200 dudes." Okay, well, you're not moving the ball forward, man. You look
Right.
great. You're sexy. It's real sexy, and you got two scopes on your rifle, and I got a
Yeah.
scar, and now I can shoot 800 meters, man. And
Right.
look at my kit, it's so
Yeah.
cool. My glasses, and it's like, okay, dude, you're cool, but you're not making things better.
You're irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like putting chrome on your Harley, right? I mean, chrome doesn't get you home, baby.
Yeah.
It looks good, but
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
that old adage, just it doesn't. I mean, yeah, it looks cool, but it doesn't get you home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're putting chrome on your Harley, but we're dirt biking, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, 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 exactly, right? Yeah,
Yeah. And I love being able to talk with you about this because we get it. And the other thing is It's not 21-year wars. It's 21-year wars with amnesia as to anything that happened and our own insane belief that we really won the last time we were there. When you go back to the same valley and you meet the same people again and the relationship's already there and you're like, "What the fuck? Why is this place so fucked up?" I used to
Yeah.
love to go when I went to a new area, I'd look on the walls and see the pictures of what they had done, and then I would look for the evidence of that, you know? And you can't know it all of what happened before, but you realize like, oh, they already tried the tractor program here. Well, why didn't that work? I used to love when as soon as the word rehab, the radio in a box, whenever that came out of someone's mouth, right? And it's going to be an officer, like a captain or a major. They're going to be in charge of that. They're like, we got to deploy the radio in a box, right? And God bless, that's what they've been trained to do.
Right.
I love to go back into the SharePoint and go grab the last 5 units and their rehab slides and go,
Did the
okay, we've tried
same
this because we always
shit.
try it. It's the same thing. We try
Yeah.
it every single time. And I look at the major is seasoned enough to get it. The captain never is. Captain gets pissed at me because I'm challenging their idea.
Right.
The major's like, fuck. All right, what are we going to do? Because here's the other thing. The one time when the major didn't get it, I'm like, I'm going to predict the future here for you. I'm going to go out and start looking into the rehab for you. And I'm going to write reports. And I'm going to make sure they get on the boss's desk. You will have access to them too. Would you like me to do this first before you start briefing this program? And the one guy's like, nah, I got it. And I'm like, okay, no worries. I'm going to go take care of this for you. And you get destroyed. And then the boss looks around and he's like, what in the fuck are we doing? Because I guarantee you my presentation's going to have the slides. Like, here are the slides from the last 4 units for grad
Yep.
rehab. I cannot find the old 4 rehabs. I don't know where they are. I don't know
Yeah.
anything else.
Exactly.
Do you want to do this again, sir? And then,
Yeah.
and then the SEALs over there going like, who can we kill?
Yeah.
Like, you guys are all a cartoon. I'm a cartoon. We're all a cartoon in this thing. But we can't just put scopes on our damn rifles and talk about how great we shoot when, and you know this, every single infantry commander first line item is close with and destroy the enemy.
Right.
They didn't.
Because they didn't even know who the enemy was because we got played.
Right.
We got played. How many times did you go into a village, you worked on it for 3 months, and then you found out, oh, well, this guy has really just hated this guy, and he's leveraging our lethality to go get rid of his adversary.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And that dude's really not a bad dude.
Right.
If you just went and talked to him for 5 minutes and had a conversation and sat down with him, you would figure out it's over some land dispute that they had 100 years ago.
Yeah.
That means nothing to the war effort at all. It's like they need to go to the Shure and figure this out and let the Shure figure it out, or the elders, whoever it may be at the point, and then, and you're so right. I mean, we're all cartoons and we redo these things all the time. And then we rotate out, new guys rotate in, they don't know anything.
Nothing.
They get a right seat and a left seat. It lasts 48 hours. They're so eager to get into the fight. They don't read any of the past reports. And like you said, yeah, radio in a box, baby. You know what? Maybe that should be on a list that says, do not try. It doesn't work, because as soon as you figure out everything that doesn't work, now you can figure out what may work, but it's too hard. It's always, even before guys get into country, I'm sure they're thinking, oh, this is what we're going to do. We got these briefs. We know how to fix this. And, the problem is that nobody is keeping that historical data about what really happened with that. And so, it's got to come from the top down. It's got to be pushed. It really has to be pushed. You're not going to do this. And that sucks because, SF guys hate that. Don't tell me how I'm going to run my op, I'm the guy on the ground. What the hell do you know?
Right.
And it's like, look, dude, trust me, there's been 20 years of this shit, and you should probably read the freaking SODARs that should have been written by at least a competent dude on the team, and you should have read it. And that guy should have read the one before and the one before and the one before, because that's how you start to understand things. And, let's just be, how do you feel about the exit of Afghanistan? I mean, I was absolutely out of my mind. I could not sleep, really, truly, for like 3 days, dude.
Yeah. It was horrible. And look, let's just start from the top. The guy running things already screwed this up before in Iraq. And that
Absolutely.
includes almost every guy at the very top. And it starts with Joe Biden. It goes to Secretary Austin. Look, all of those people screwed this up already, right? And then they put this narrative about getting involved in someone's civil war. Excuse me? What are you talking about?
God, oh my
You
God.
not only popped smoke on all of our allies that still had
Mhm.
people there, you left Americans behind. The Secretary of Defense had to say, I don't know where all of the Americans are, nor can I ensure their safety. Out loud with his out loud words, and still the Secretary of the Defense. Yeah, it's terrible. That is all the immediate stuff. And I don't care about the weapons and material. That stuff was always going to get left behind. It was never going to be serviceable for very long. It's worth some kind of money, but that ship sailed a long time ago. The bigger problem is what's there now? What's in Bagram now?
Right.
And then how are they going to be able to deploy a guy? We just had a guy go hold hostages, Jewish hostages in a synagogue in Texas, and we don't know how that dude got here. We don't know how he got trained. We don't know anything. And maybe that has nothing to do with Bagram Airfield, but that's not always going to be true. And they're
Correct.
going to go to France, Bagram to Paris, just not that far. It's not that.
No.
It's a long road trip.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, the thing I hate about it is the lies. That
Yeah,
the complete I mean, look, there's a couple of principles that I wish our leaders would just adhere to. One, don't tell a lie. And two, if you cannot do that, then just don't say anything.
yeah,
And so to say that you don't know how to, you and I both know there was an embassy there. If you were a civilian coming into Afghanistan, you had to have a passport. That passport had to be checked at the airport. The
right,
embassy knew how many people were there. Now, maybe not down to the very gnat's ass, but I promise you, they knew how many visas were issued and how many were signed and how many people had came into Afghanistan,
right,
because you can't get into a foreign country, a sovereign country, without some type of passport.
right.
So for them to say they didn't know, to even estimate the numbers,
Yeah,
was idiocy. That's just
yeah,
stupid. We know that's just you're lying.
yeah. It breaks. Well, at one point, President Trump said, "Nobody can give me a straight answer on where people are throughout the world." And I don't know where we lose the grasp of that. I know it happens. I understand there's a lot of influences on this, but when you go to, "Hey, Captain, where are every single one of your people right now?"
Correct.
And if you can't answer that question to a
You're
pretty
done.
solid degree, like, I got 4 dudes at the doctor, first sergeant, where's everybody else at? Whatever.
Correct.
If you can't account for those people as a leader, you failed. So at some point above captain, probably lieutenant colonel can say, I have 250 contractors. They are here somewhere. They're cats, but I know that they're here, and you guys can check with hire to figure out if they've left country. Cause like you said, that's tracked and we can account for these things. Above that, I don't think you can keep track of it anymore because it's not valuable.
Right.
And, and some of it is really hard to track because there's classified shit going on, you know?
Correct.
However, there is a commander above each and one of those people.
That's right. That's what I was thinking. I was like, if you really needed to know, like, if
Yeah.
I would just, get on the phone, man.
Yeah.
Your commanders, like you said, those captains got to know.
Yeah.
And then you just have your adjutant or whatever. Hey, dude, I need a freaking count,
Right.
like within the next 24 hours, and it
Yeah.
would happen. It would
You like
happen.
you like getting promoted, full bird colonel? You wanna make that star?
Yeah, that's right.
Dotty dotty, everybody. Where are they all at?
Right, exactly. And even if you don't, like I said, even if you don't have the exact total numbers,
Right.
there's ways you can go. I mean, the Neo thing. Okay.
Yeah.
We work Neo in all kinds of other countries, and on what those operations look like, the non-combative evacuation,
Right.
plan is the Neo thing. For those that are listening that don't know what that is, you can look it up. Just Google Neo, and you'll figure it out. But those type of operations are designed specifically to get those civilians out of those countries when
Right.
things go south and there's a civil war or something. Okay. I mean, hospitals where to take people that are casualties. We had mercy ships in some of the countries in Africa where we could take people to a boat because they had all the trauma facilities there. I mean, how do you get there? What are the routes? How many people? Where do people locate? How do you pick them up? What is the security plan?
Yeah.
All these things. How do they communicate with us when all the communications are out? I mean, all that stuff is there. It may not be very, it's hard to practice it, so it's even harder to execute. But there
Yeah.
is a semblance of a plan, and I just don't understand what. I don't even know. I mean, maybe they did try to execute it, and that was part of the plan. Is
Well,
leaving
then someone's got
Bagram
to
and
get fired.
yeah, somebody's got to get fired. Exactly. I mean, first of all, you don't know how many people there are. Second of all, you
Yeah.
didn't execute the Neo plan. And third of all, your
Yeah.
embassy left the country on
Right.
the first plane out.
Yes.
So nobody could operate anyways. Who's going to do that mission when the guys aren't there? And when you know as well as I do, Pete, you tell your privates to pack their shit because we're going home. Roger that, Sarge.
Back up and gone.
I don't care, man. I don't want to
Oh,
miss
shit.
that bird.
Yeah. You guys are already in line for the airplane. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I need my gun. I need my nods. I need my security.
I got a front pack. I got a backpack. I got a bag in my
Exactly.
backpack.
I will leave shit there. I know I got about I got about 6 things I need, and it better be in my bag, and I better be on that plane because that's what happened. They're just
Yeah.
like, what do we do with the dogs? I don't know. Let them out.
I meant to say this earlier too. This is another illustration. We talk about nation building. In fact, we should be talking about state building. And if we're going to do either of them, we should know the difference between them, understand the theory and the literature, but we don't even know. And so we can't even have the state building versus nation building conversation. And so here's the theory around this thing that we're supposed to try to do, and we're like clueless about it, right? So I wanted to make sure I said that out loud because we talked about state building or nation building earlier. We're at a nation that it has enormous mountains, and so therefore has a ministry of mining. And I know we've been there a lot. I don't know a single person who engaged with the minister of mines at any level at all. How are you building a state that needs money if you can't? And we have this resource. You can't tell me you're taking this thing seriously. I wanted to say those things out loud. The other thing I wanted to talk about with what you're saying with the withdrawal. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. This is where the politicians come in. You have an author that told a story. Her name escapes me right now. She's the Air Force reservist.
Yeah, Julian Mackey.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
She was part of the division that deployed to Washington, D.C. to provide security. A division, for the intent of this conversation, is 25,000 people. We managed to put 25,000 people in a city that was not under siege. I didn't have an enemy knocking at the door. I'm not minimizing any kind of threat or anything else. 25,000 service members and all the accoutrement that come with that. And we couldn't put an extra 10 and say, Taliban, get twitchy and we'll double this. We're glad to leave. Don't make us want to stay. But we didn't because the people on top are cowards and they're wrong. So, I mean, and they deployed for months in DC.
Yes.
Months and months and months.
Yeah, and they were reservists. So take that concept, take a Ranger battalion, and put them in Kabul.
Yeah.
And say, okay, you want to play games? These guys will break everything and they will kill everybody.
Right.
So just make one wrong move. Those guys will be at your doorstep within 30 freaking minutes. I promise you.
Right. Right.
And they would be. I mean, that's all you need. And that's not 25,000 dudes. That's what, 200, 600 guys, maybe?
Yeah.
600 dudes.
Yeah. Oh, we don't know what we're. When you say, "Oh, we had a deal that Donald Trump made, and what are we going to do? We can't change the deal, motherfucker."
Yes, I know. You're in charge. You're in charge. What do you mean?
Now? You know what I just decided? I decided we're putting a division right back into Kabul until everybody gets out. Every American will walk out. Every American.
Yeah, because you're in charge. I mean, look at the Russians. They're like, okay, we're leaving, but so help us. If you attack our convoys coming out of here, we are going to kill all of you.
Yeah. So that's what I think about that.
I know, brother. It makes
have to figure that problem out, but I know, and none of us were surprised that it fell. Some people were surprised with the speed with which it fell, but not me. Those guys,
No, we knew
they're
that.
survivors. They're flipping sides as soon as they need to.
Yeah, they had to, because they knew after we were gone, there was no more support.
Right. Right.
And coming in from the Fada through Pakistan, those dudes are just chomping at the bit, man. They're just waiting, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and that's the whole thing. I mean, the other part of that whole equation, I think, really is that, you've got to have, the neighboring nations support. If you don't got that, man, I mean, you're surrounded.
Right.
And, Afghanistan doesn't even have a port. I mean, you can't do anything with a landlocked country like that. I mean, you
Right.
have to have support, from those countries. And where was that all going? We're just paying Pakistan, what, $88 million a month? For what?
Yeah.
And they didn't even care about the FATA. I mean, they just let their dudes, they just released them all before the war started so that they could go be in their own little area because they knew they needed a buffer. I mean, come on, man. This is hard stuff. This is like those guys are playing shoots and ladders. And what we needed to be doing was like three-dimensional chess,
Mhm.
and they're
Yeah.
like 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I could climb the ladder. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. You know, we cannot play that game
Yeah.
because it doesn't work. You have to be on a completely different level. And it's not, oh, I got three scopes for my rifle.
I don't want to give that dude too much of a hard time because it is cool, right? That's how you draw.
Yeah, oh yeah, dude. I
But you
get
are
it, man.
not going to win with 2 or 3 or 5, 7,
No,
Gherkin knife on your kit. None of that shit is going
no.
to make a difference.
No, I mean, literally, yeah, we all had that. We all had three different, it depends on the mission you're going on. Okay, so we're hitting a compound. Okay, I'm not putting my ACOG on there because it's a useless piece of equipment. You got to have the right tool for the job. And like you're saying, the Rangers aren't the right tool. The Navy SEALs aren't the right tool. It's probably CA guys and a bunch of smart dudes from Department of Agriculture, not the clowns that were there. Maybe DEA. I mean, there are a lot of things that we could have done, and they wouldn't even known we were there. Like you
Right.
said, kinetic would have been the very last thing we could have done, and the Taliban would be like, "Damn, what's going on?"
Yeah.
There's no, they're not dropping bombs anywhere. They ain't even flying
Yeah.
helicopters around. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, because we know what needs to happen here. Like you said with the mining, who did the mining contract? The Chinese did.
Oh.
Yeah, the Chinese did. The Chinese did that. They brought in 2,000 workers from China to do that mining operation out there.
Yeah.
And I remember when that came down, I went to my command and I said, "Hey, sir, did you know this contract went to the Chinese to mine,
Right.
I think it's aluminum there or whatever it is in
Yeah.
Afghanistan."
Whatever they need. Yeah.
Whatever it was, I can't remember what it was. It didn't matter. The big
Yeah.
thing was is that I told him, I said, "Well, it looks like we're going to have about 2,000 spies
Right.
filling into Afghanistan
Yeah.
from China in about a freaking, month." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, you didn't see that the, Afghan government actually awarded the contract to the Chinese."
Yeah.
And I said, part of the contract was that they would hire so many Afghans, but they the Afghans, there's not enough people that really understand how to mine. So, they probably got menial tasks like, I don't know, whatever, sweeping the truck out. I mean,
Yeah.
you know the deal, right? Like
All
driving a
right.
truck from point A to point B, but the
Waiting to
actual
do an
mining
invitation. I
operation.
got my spit cup out. And
Go.
I learned this from Neil Rabin, who's a retired Green Beret guy, and he would just bring the most obvious thing. He just pull the pin on his hand grenade and roll it in the floor. You're like, so you say all that like we got 2,000 spies, and then Neil's going to go, who's providing security for those mining patrols going out?
Yeah,
Oh, that's us, sir. That's us. Like,
yeah,
oh
we'll
God.
do it.
So we're providing security for sure, or supporting the security element from the Afghans to ensure that this foreign company can extract ore. So we're obligated now to be their security force in effect because the
Yeah.
Afghans are going to do as best they can. And so that's absolutely what happens all the time. And here's what no commander ever said in terms of like, here is an effect I need to see, right? Can we make a line that is too big for the government to manage to go out their front door of that county government or that state government? Can we make people come in with their problems and have them walk out with an Afghan solution to that problem? Never once worried about it, never once tried it. We would build courtrooms and have no cases in them, and everybody we're cool with that. We're cool with that. We don't need any cases where the guy's corrupt. Like, I don't care if he's corrupt. You have a courthouse with no one having cases brought to them, you know?
Yeah, and I remember that discussion. It's like, okay, well, what do we do? And it was, oh well, they have no rule of law, and it's like, my argument was, well, they do, but we
They do.
don't understand it because
Yeah.
it's not ran the same way a Western civilization would run it.
Right.
They do it in a different sense. They come together, they talk. It's like the Native Americans. I mean, once we started to understand, it's like this tribal thing, and it would be like the Native Americans in the 1700s, 1800s, and how they operated. I mean, look, the Native Americans would have kicked our asses right off the freaking continent if they could have got together and said, we're all going to get our spears and our arrows and we're going to go kick those dudes' ass. We
Yeah.
wouldn't have had a chance. We'd have been freaking wiped off the freaking continent.
Yeah.
And every other soul that came here would have had to freaking fight a huge amount of people to even come in, and they would have controlled the situation. But for Afghanistan, in particular Afghanistan, well, even in Iraq and a lot of other countries like that. I mean, even in Africa, there's a lot of different ways they do things. But
Right.
to not try to understand it, just to say, oh, we're going to put courtrooms in because, that'll work. Well, again, you have not talked to the people. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
more about conversations than it is slinging lead.
Yeah.
Um,
What is the existing penal system here? Ah, it's civil. Okay. Well, should we set up an actual punitive, system? Well, maybe, maybe not. We don't have one. Who's going to pay for that? Well, here's Neil Raven.
yeah.
Who's going to pay for that? And you're like, fuck, I don't know. You got to hire guards and build prisons and make chow and move poop and all these things. Where's the tax base? Where's the tax base for that?
Yeah. How are you going to collect taxes? Okay, you're not. You're not. You're not.
Yeah. Hey, go see how many tax collectors you can put into the village. I love Chris. This shocks me when and people don't know this. We have to talk about it. When you have your provincial map, and the province is like a state for everybody, and the counties inside those, we call those districts. When you have one of them that's just doop, it's grayed off. It's just gray. We don't even talk about it. We don't brief about it. We don't care about it. Go send a tax collector up there to that gray part of the map and let me know how much money they come back with in that bag of theirs.
Yeah.
Oh. But we don't go up there. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. There you go. There's your answer. There's your answer. Yeah. And it hurts me. So the thing that I always think about, and this was required reading when I went to the Lawrence course at the time, was The Ugly American.
yeah,
And what an incredible book. JFK made his a lot of the people that surrounded him. I don't know if he made his entire cabinet, but he made people that were in his purview to have to read that book.
yeah,
And it was just Vietnam. It was written about kind of the same thing, and about how so clueless as to first of all how spies work. Like,
no,
part of the book was about the guy that was actually a servant inside the embassy, and the dude was a spy. They
yeah,
didn't even know, but they didn't vet the dude, and so and he spoke English and all this other stuff. And it just reminds me of that. It's a perfect title, to demonstrate how we continue to do the same thing over and over again,
yeah,
in these countries. And like I said, it's three-dimensional chess as compared to shoots and ladders, man. I mean, it's just, there's no comparison, and it has to be top down. Like you said, the matrix have to change for measures of success. What are those? And like you said, I mean, just like the radio in a box, it's so easy. I
yeah,
don't have to do anything, and we're just going to execute. Ready, pull it off the shelf. Here we go. We don't have to think today. And it's like, no, dude, that's the hard part of this work, is like,
yeah,
you need to sit down, and probably even before you step your foot out the door, is really have a good executable plan. But what is success?
yeah.
And that's the hardest part.
And I would even say it's more complicated than three-dimensional chess because again, we have this systematic amnesia that we have no idea what happened 2 years before. We don't know how to even use interpreters at an advanced level. There is no SF 2-week resident course for you to become a professional interpreter operator, and there is no follow-on course for you and another interpreter to bond together to be a badass team, right? But you can absolutely go to sniper school and never shoot anybody with a sniper rifle in your entire career and be legitimate. And I'm not, again, you got to have lethality. So I would say if it's three-dimensional chess, that ride at the fair where it spins around and you're like, and you're stuck
Yeah.
to a wall. You're playing three-dimensional chess while you're in that thing.
And that thing.
And you're
Yeah.
like, can't even lift the pawn, bro.
You can't get my arm up. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, that's what it is. Like you hit on something about, you can go to sniper school, you can go to ranger school, whatever. And yeah, okay, that gives you the ability to use that one tool. But you're gonna spend 90% of your time not in a sniper hide, but with that
90
interpreter.
99.
Yeah.
How many?
Yeah.
Here's the thing we don't study. How many snipers went to fill in the blank country and didn't even do their damn job? First off, they were
Yeah.
never in a sniper role.
Yeah.
How many sniper rounds? Like, I know Chris Kyle shot a bunch of people, but you think about how many days in Iraq and in Afghanistan during the last 20 years, and he shot 150 people.
Yeah, brother.
I mean, out of how many patrols?
Right.
Out
Yeah,
of how many
total.
millions of
Right.
people? And it's like that is such an infinitesimal thing and
Sure.
important in that context. But
So I
not
remember, just to add to the story. So I remember on SF was like, oh, we need a new pistol. 45s are better than 9 mils.
yeah,
Blah 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 blah.
yeah,
And so SF was smart. We said, okay, we're gonna do a study. How many guys actually shot a dude with a 9 mil in
right.
combat? Like in combat,
Uh-huh.
3 dudes, and they were gonna spend like, I don't know, $4 million to refit
Yeah,
SF with, 6 Sawyer 45s. And it's like, hmm, $4
yeah,
million. dollars. That's like over $1 million for each dude killed with
yeah,
they're like, no,
yeah,
no. Cause I mean, I didn't even take mine with me and sometimes I was just like, this thing is nothing more than a 3 pound weight I don't even want
yeah,
to carry.
yeah,
And if my rifle goes out, I guess I just have a bad day. But
yeah,
I really knew that as far as the firefights go, I never touched my pistol. I never did.
yeah,
There was no need for it.
yeah. I should say in this thing,
Yeah.
no weapons allowed when you're playing three-dimensional chess. And you're like, well, come on. These pawns are heavy and I need a gun. No, you don't.
Right. And
If
you
you
can't even move the guy because you got to
Yeah,
talk to the guy outside
right,
to actually make your move for you, and you can't
yeah,
see what he's saying, and he's
right.
speaking a foreign language to
See?
another dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that dude is actually making the move, but you got to work through his translator and you're stuck in the
Oh my
machine.
god. It's so true. I mean, that is the level of complexity required to do this stuff. But, and we want it to be simple. We want it to be I mean, look, I know I love my friends that work on maneuver warfare and they're trying to figure out how to get battalions to left hook or whatever it is and all that stuff. Great. I'm glad we're focusing on that. Can we please put 80% more attention on the shit that matters? You know? You're making a baseball card that makes a bad guy for the entirety of his life. I mean, probably
Yeah.
you want to study something, how many times did we kill the absolute wrong guy?
Oh
Especially
God.
because the 3 comes in, it's like, we gotta kill somebody. And
Right.
you're like, well, how about this guy? He's a bad guy. And then you find out, whoops, as a story that Will Hardy tells, where because he had deployed previously with the guy who was, we'll say the 3, the operations guy for the audience, because he deployed with them previously, he had enough trust to say, hey, hold on, before you kill fill in the blank bad guy, let me just go look into that. And it turned out he was about to become a legitimate Giroa official. His job was dealing with, I think it was the internally displaced people. He was like their rallying point, and he was like trying to collect them and provide for them. So maybe he was a bad guy, but he also was an important guy to this area and also legitimately part of the government. And so we just because we wanted to, that guy would have died 99 times out of 100, But Will was able to go, slow down, hold on, let me look into this. And then they're like, whew, glad we didn't kill that guy. How many times did that guy die? All the rest of the times.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, that, and you have to deal with those people. I mean, you have to deal with those people. I mean,
Yeah.
I got asked by a command, a ranger actually, and he's like, "Well, that guy's a bad guy." And I was like, "Well, sir, who do you think I deal with all the
Yeah.
time? I know you want to
Thank
go,
God.
but this is my guy,
Right.
and he's giving me information. If you go kill him,
Yeah.
you know, I, I got it. He's not, And I was like, I'm not dealing with choir boys here because they don't have any info, man.
Yeah. You found a bad guy? Oh, cool. I need to talk to him. Where's he at?
Yeah.
These are my best friends. Don't you want
Yeah.
your spot to talk to the bad guys? Well, yeah. So then let me know whenever you find one. Don't arrest them. Bring them on the camp. I'll bring them
Yeah.
on the camp myself. Well, please let me talk to these guys.
Yeah. 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 And because you find out later that,
Yeah.
I mean, we had this one kid, he was a young kid and well, I mean, they're all young, okay, in Afghanistan. I mean, if you're 50, you're an old man, okay?
Right. Yeah.
So and I had all this reporting. We scarfed this dude up. I let my Afghan counterparts do their little thing to try to get some information. Then I pulled him in and I started talking. I talked to him for like 4 hours, man. And I found out number one, he was set up. Number two, the guys that had set him up had actually planted some stuff, in his shop, and he didn't know about it. Okay, he found out later, but it was all just to get him out of there. He had competing interest of what he was doing with this other individual. He had been on the bad guy list for the Afghan government, and then he got on the bad guy list for the American government. And I was like, dude, I was like, look, okay, regardless of what you've done, okay, regardless if you actually did any of this stuff, I said, I don't get the feeling that you're out here trying to kill Americans or
Right.
anybody for that matter. I think you're just trying to preserve your interest. Like, I really got that feeling. I may have been wrong, but at
Right.
that point, I had talked to hundreds of dudes and I'd been in Afghanistan for like 3 years. And this was on one of my last trips. And I was just like, I had to tell the guys, like, dude, your friends don't, you got enemies, they're living next door to you. The Americans are looking for you, the Afghans are looking for you. I have you now, and I could send you away on a black and color C-130. And I was just like, you just need to disappear, dude.
Yeah.
You just need to disappear. Because what would have been the effort to actually have this guy go to wherever? A young kid, barely in his 20s. He doesn't know anybody. He doesn't know anybody, and he's just worried about his shop. That's it.
That's
And
it.
you could pound on him, you could do whatever, you could put him in solitary, you could interrogate him for 10 hours a day,
Right.
you know, eh, whatever you wanted to do. But the guy was so low level, just was not worth the time, even if he was a bad guy.
When so one of the main bad guys in Afghanistan was a guy named Mullah Omar, and he had this incredible story. That guy lived less than 5 miles from all of the American camps that I worked on and lived on. I never
Yeah.
found him. I'm a damn good spy. None of the other spies found him. None of the commanders found him. That guy died of old age or
Yep.
tuberculosis or whatever
Tuberculosis,
stuff that
TB.
got him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was sitting there a, a foot patrol away from any of us, and that's how shitty we are. So if it's kinetic, why didn't we find that guy?
Right.
You know, here's a guy that clearly is communicating to the outside world. We didn't manage to find the main guy that we wanted to find. And
Yeah.
so when you look at all these things and you find this 20-year-old kid and you turn him into a bad guy and he's looked for by everybody. Okay, great. Meanwhile, why isn't there and this is, I know you know this is for the audience. There was a guy in every province whose job it was to find and bring in guys who are like in the Taliban. They're like, hey, you know what? I don't want to be in the Taliban anymore. I want to take the deal. I want
Yeah.
to come in. I don't want to work with you guys. And that guy got to wear civilian clothes. It was a sweet gig. It did not matter if he never, ever, ever delivered a Taliban guy during his year in country. As if, I don't know, that we didn't care,
Yeah.
We have
Right.
that's his one function. That's why
Yeah.
he existed, was to find Taliban guys. I would, on the other hand, I would find whatever guy I could find, and if they were at all important, I would bring them on the American camp, and I would say, Americans, we're not going to search him, and it still freaks Americans out that why would you do that? Why would you bring? Because motherfucker, I'm trying to build some trust. If I can give this guy ice
Rapport.
cream,
Yeah.
and yeah, exactly, turn him into someone that like sees us as a positive and blow his mind with air conditioning. I have him on my turf now, and I'm not interrogating him. I'm treating him like a friend and like a guest. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to send a bunch of my buddies over here and talk to you because Pete's fucking cool. And I can go out and I can find out more about threat without even looking for it, and more about what the actual mission was than anybody else could. Because I'm like, instead of me eating your food, you live on next to nothing. And then 20 hungry dudes on creatine show up with guns. Forget that shit. Let's come to our
The
house.
stormtroopers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, dude. Oh, I know, man.
So many of the times, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and what baffled me is that, some high level dudes that I did talk to that had survived Russians, and they were players within,
Mhm.
whatever province. Like they
Yeah.
were main players. Two things that struck me so strange, just being an American. And, they were like, this guy's a bad guy. And I'm like, okay, wait. Let's go talk to the dude first before we make
Yeah.
a decision on whether or not he's a bad guy or not.
Right.
Oh, he's bad. We need to blow his compound up. It's like,
Yeah.
stop, okay? Listen, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna take my team. I'm gonna go in there, and
Yeah.
if the firefight starts, then the firefight starts, okay?
Right.
But
Yeah.
I almost
It is
promise you
kind of
it
our
won't.
job. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna
Right.
happen. I mean, this guy's been around a while. If you're telling me he's been around for that long,
Yeah.
how did he survive all this shit? He
Yeah.
surely didn't just start shooting at every freaking dude that didn't look like him.
Yeah.
He just didn't do that. So we
Yeah.
go in there and we talk to this guy, and sure enough, man, he's the dude we're looking for. And he sets us down. He feeds us dinner. He has chai with us. He brings in his servants, all this stuff. And he's talking to me about, how the Russians operate, and then us Americans ain't got shit on them. Like the Russians did shit. Just if you done screwed up, they'd kill you. And I mean, I learned so much more from that guy just having a conversation with him for hours.
Right.
And I'd hear, my radio guy be like, "Hey, Chief, they're wondering what we're doing," and I'd be like, "Listen, chill out. We're having dinner, okay?
Yeah.
We're having chai." They're like, "Oh my God, they haven't had radio contact." I was just like, "Keep them,
Yeah.
just tell them,
It's all effective.
status report, everything's cool." Took off
And
all our crap. I'm sitting there in a t-shirt, just I literally,
yeah.
just sitting down at this dude's table. And and he just explained Afghanistan. I asked him about the culture and what and I was just like, that report was the report that we needed to send up to hire to say, "Hey, look, you thought he was a bad guy. This is who he really is.
Right.
And if you treat him like he treated us, with
Oh
the
yeah.
same type of, hospitality, you know, just genuineness,
Yeah.
no BS, just
Right.
tell it the way it is, And he told me, he goes, "I just line myself with whoever is the strongest dude around." He goes,
Yeah.
"How do you think?" And I was like, "Well, duh, we know
Yeah.
that."
Yeah.
And so, you can get that guy on your side. He's probably the guy you want to be running stuff for the Afghanis because of the Afghanis,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, listen, I've had you on for a long time. I want everybody to go. If you want to get some really cool books from guys like Chris or people that have been there and done that, you want to go to Tactical 16. You can just go to tactical16.com and you can, like, I've got the About Us link on there just so you can see who these authors are and everything. Good people, solid dude. Chris is great. If you want to see another interesting show, and you should go watch a show with Michelle Black, because Chris has been to Africa, and her and Michelle's husband went to Africa, and they got ambushed, or ended up in an ambush
yeah.
with a bunch of forces in Africa, and then the bad stuff happens. And guess who the main bad guy is? It's us. It's us. It's
Yeah.
always us. That's another incredible show. So look, Chris has got incredible people. He's doing wonderful things, and it'd mean a lot to me if you guys went out and supported Tactical 16 and some of these authors. If you support law enforcement, if you support warriors, if you want to buy a book of poetry from a World War II veteran, I mean, that's what we're talking about. These kind of people, and you see how knowledgeable and compassionate Chris is about all these things. Chris, anything in closing?
No, brother, thanks for having me on. Pete. I mean, it's always such a good time to really have a candid, honest discussion about, things. And I we should have worked together a lot more downrange, uh,
Yeah.
but we're two pawns on that,
Uh-huh.
that chess set. And
Yeah.
if we could have changed the world, I don't
Uh,
know.
yeah, maybe. By the way, I've got Stuart Scheller on Monday. So
Cool.
we're going to get into this, and he's done a great job on Jocko's, and he was on Tucker Carlson and all that. None of those guys have the knowledge that you and I have, where we can talk to Stuart Scheller, because as much as Jocko is Jocko.
Yeah,
And,
Jocko. Yeah.
yeah, and he's going to cover this differently. So if you guys are interested at all in Stuart Scheller and getting really into
Yeah.
the accountability, because I think a lot of us are pissed. How is no person with stars on their shoulders fired?
I don't even know how that starts, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I got it. The POTUS said execute. Okay.
Yeah.
But there had to be somebody there that freaking laid his rank down on the table and said, look, dude, this is going to end badly.
Right.
Here's what's going to happen. You've got the intel brief. My guys are on the ground. I mean, somebody, please tell me there was an officer that threw his rank down on the table and said,
There's not.
I know. And that's horrible. You know what I'm saying? Like, willing to walk out, just here it is.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, you do this, I'm walking, I'm done. Who
from TRADOC ever laid down their rank for sending people downrange? Who from TRADOC got fired because of what went down in Abu Ghraib?
I'd like to know that.
How many people got killed because of that stuff in Abu Ghraib?
Right.
How many times were we blown up because of that stuff? And nobody of any significance got fired. We put some kids in jail.
Yeah, that's all we did. And I mean, that did not solve the problem. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic of discussion, man. I mean, we could get down in the weeds about that. You're right. And I wonder how many officers actually did that in World War II. That said, okay, sir, I got it. We got to execute, but this is a bad idea.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. I'm going to roll this thing. Hang on. Stand by 1 sec. We'll wrap it up.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you.